Should we start?
I think we can start.
Shall we start?
Yeah, we can start.
Okay. Good morning, and this 57th webinar on analysis and design of liquid retaining structures, which is being organized by ACCEI Goa Center in collaboration with Ramco Cements. We have a number of people who are behind this program from ACCEI Goa Center who had made this possible, and we have dignitaries here. All the dignitaries would be welcomed by the chairman of ACCEI Goa Center, Engineer Krishna Sayakari, who would be giving the welcome address. Over to you, Engineer Krishna Sayakari, for giving the welcome address, please.
Yeah, thank you, sir. Good morning. Hope all of you are fine and doing well during this COVID pandemic. I welcome you for this webinar series on the analysis and design of liquid retaining structures organized by ACCEI Goa Center in association with the Ramco Cements Limited. The revisions in IS codes IS 3370 and IS 1893 Part 2 necessitated need of a seminar. This event was planned as a seminar earlier by the Goa Center of ACCEI to be held in the month of April, which we have converted into webinar series due to COVID-19 pandemic. I welcome Dr. M.U. Ashwath, President ACCEI, Engineer K. Garuda-Dhwajan, Secretary General ACCEI, Resource Persons Engineer L.K. Jain, who is past President of ACCEI and also member BIS Committee. I welcome Dr. R.K. Ingle, who is Professor of Applied Mechanics, VNIT Nagpur. I welcome Dr. Virendra Dehadrai, who is Consulting Engineer from Nagpur. I welcome Mr. Anil Kumar Pillai, GM Technical Services, the Ramco Cements Limited. On behalf of ACCEI Goa Center, I thank the Ramco Cements Limited, and I also thank Mr. Anil Kumar Pillai, GM Technical Services, and Mr. Suraj Kumar, AGM Technical Services. Without their help, this event would not have been possible. I would also extend thanks to Dr. M.U. Ashwath, President ACCEI, Engineer K. Garuda-Dhwajan, Secretary General, for addressing this webinar. I thank resource persons, Engineer L.K. Jain, Dr. R.K. Ingle, and Dr. Virendra Dehadrai for accepting our request to share their knowledge. Thank you. Over to you, Mr. Anil Kumar.
Engineer Krishna Sayakari. Now, before we go to the speakers, let me invite Dr. M.U. Ashwath for the address. And before giving over to him, let me give a brief introduction of Dr. M.U. Ashwath. Dr. Ashwath is the Director Principal at Bangalore Institute of Technology, and he is the National President of Association of Consulting Civil Engineers India, ACCEI. He is the Bureau Head, Bangalore for SME World, New Delhi, Technical Advisor for RMCMA, and former Secretary General for All India ACCEI, and is the former Vice President of Indian Concrete Institute. As training and placement person, he has placed more than 35,000 students in national and multinational companies. And Dr. Ashwath has published more than 100 papers at national and international journals, conferences, and organized more than 300 workshops, seminars for professionals, faculty, students for knowledge dissemination. He has received many awards. Some of them are Achievement Award for Outstanding Academician, CIDC Vishwakarma Award 2014. The National Award was conferred on 7th March 2014 by Construction Industry Development Council, established by Planning Commission, Government of India, and the construction industry. And he was also felicitated by the Honorable Chief Minister. He is an eminent engineer award he has got by ACCEI Bangalore Center. He was felicitated during the Engineers Day celebration. He is an academician par excellence, and he is also involved in the Rotary Club activities. So with those few words, let me invite Dr. Ashwath to share his few words. In fact, ACCEI has been collaborating with us at Ramco Cements for the past so many events, and he himself has taken a lot of initiatives to be a part of many events with the objective of dissemination of knowledge. So over to you, Dr. Ashwath, for sharing your views.
Sir, thank you very much, Anil. Thank you very much, Anil, for your support to ACC in conducting so many webinars. I think you're the highest, crossing 50 numbers so far. And as all of you know, Association of Consulting Civil Engineers India was formed and registered under Societies Act in 1985. And later on, very active after that in upgrading the knowledge of all the civil engineers. Basically, our vision is very clear to foster the ideas of the profession with a very structured action plan of conducting a lot of activities for the benefit of the profession in particular and the society in general. And we have been doing these activities in knowledge dissemination from the beginning. And during this COVID-19, the activities of ACCI and all the centers are very encouraging, and they are very responsive to the need of the hour, and joint hands with many government departments and NGOs in handling this pandemic. I should thank on this platform all the centers and all the members who are taking initiatives in taking care of the professionals and the people connected with the profession. And as usual, our Goa center is very active and doing a lot of activities. And Mr. Krishna Sahakari is one man who doesn't make a lot of noise. He work very silently and do activities. And I thank Krishna Sahakari for taking this initiative in association with Ramco Cements. And I'm very happy to mention here Engineer Gardadwajan, the Secretary General, who is also part of this program today, is one of our founder members who is giving a lot of support and guidance to the association activities. And we have been doing all these activities for the benefit of the civil engineering profession in general. And in the present scenario, when we are facing this pandemic COVID-19, we are also disturbed by some activities of our friends in architecture profession who would like to redefine the services what engineers should do, and they have proposed some amendments which are not in line with the Principal Architects Act, which was passed during the year 1972. The Architects Act was very clearly says in its preamble that the legislation protects the title of architects but does not make the design, supervision, construction of buildings as an exclusive responsibility of architects. Other professions like engineers will be free to engage themselves in their normal vocation in respect of building construction, provided that they do not style themselves as architects. So engineers from the beginning, they're doing all these services, whether you call it as architectural services or engineering services. Engineers are involved starting from planning, design, analysis, supervision, and taking care of the services also. So many of the high courts and recently Supreme Court also has given verdict in favor of civil engineers in practicing the various services that we are doing. But now the architect friends, they have started proposing amendments to change the act itself, the Architects Act of 1972. If these amendments are comes into effect, then civil engineers will be affected. So in this connection, we at ACCE, we've formed the task force for protection of civil engineers' rights and interests, and we will see that we will make representations to the Ministry of HRD as well as all the concerned departments that engineers should not be disturbed and the Act amendments should not be taken up at any cost. So in this regarding, we have been very active, and we have formed the task force, and the committee member details are all given in the website of ACCE. The members spread across the country from all the centers. And for any of your problems, not only this architecture services, but any problems if you face in your profession with respect to the departments or any other stakeholders, you can always contact the task force members. They will definitely help all the civil engineers in performing their duties in a right way. So with this brief introduction, what ACC is doing, I would like to thank the organizers as well as the authors or the speakers of the sessions, Mr. Dr. R.K. Ingle and our guru for many of our ACCA members, L.K. Jain, for taking their time off and supporting the association in association with Ramco Cements for upgrading the knowledge of our engineering friends. Thank you very much, Krishna Sakari sir. Please carry on. Anil Kumar, I thank from ACC headquarters for all your support that we are extending to ACC. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Ashwath. In fact, ACCI, a dynamic body of engineers, has been in the forefront, and I am sure that we will go a long way in ensuring that all civil engineers are knowledgeable and are efficient, and we are able to do many more things. So with those words, let me once again thank Dr. Ashwath and invite Secretary General of ACCI, Engineer Garudadwajan, to share a few words. Engineer Garudadwajan, you are there, sir? I think he has gone offline. Shall we continue with this thing, sir? Engineer Garudadwajan?
Garudadwajan, sir, I will be unmuting your mic. You are unmuted. You can talk, sir.
Engineer,
I will catch up with him again, sir.
Okay, we'll catch up with him again. So let me continue with the further this thing. So let us start off with the presentation for the day. We have Engineer L.K. Jain, who would be enlightening us today on the introduction to IS 3370, part 1 and 2, 2020. Today would be the session 1. And let me just introduce the speaker of the day, Engineer L.K. Jain, who is a consulting structural engineer. Engineer L.K. Jain graduated in civil engineering from Vishwesvaraya Regional College of Engineering in Nagpur in 1966 with merit position in Nagpur University. He is a design and consultancy, and he is structural engineering in the field of turnkey designs for water contact structures. He has designed over 1,300 water contact structures, designed 5 aqueducts in Maharashtra having framed piers which are rigidly connected. These are the first such type of structures done in India. He designed other aqueducts and canal culverts for irrigation and hydropower projects. For 2 years, he was consultant to Gujarat government for structures of Narmada Main Canal, Sardar Sarovar project. He has been an expert advisor to Environmental Engineering Department of Maharashtra government, Public Health Engineering Department of MP government, and other organizations for distressed structures. He investigated water tanks for durability problems and gave reports. He worked for repair and renovation of other structures. He is a third-party auditor for certification of ready-mixed concrete plants, appointed by RMCMA. He is a member of ICI ICMQ Committee for Quality Certification Scheme. He has design experience since 1966. He has designed various types of buildings in reinforced cement, concrete, and steel, such as university buildings, residential hospitals, industrials, including multi-storied and buildings. Consultant for rupees 300 crore concrete overlay proposed project for City Road of Nagpur Municipal Corporation. So with those few words, let me welcome Engineer L.K. Jain to this webinar, wherein we would be having for the next 5 days. Today would be the session 1, wherein he would be speaking about the codal provisions, which is already distributed to all of us for prior reading. And I am sure that there would be a lot of takeaways from this session. In fact, this is the 57th webinar that we are organizing with Ramco, with ACCI. We had number of webinars. Ramco Cements, in fact, has been doing this so that all of us share few ideas on construction and civil related areas. We had webinars on various diverse topics like RMC, we had on blended cement, we had on smart cities, we had on reinforcement detailing, and we had a webinar on how to make civil engineers more employable, those who are coming out of the college. So there was a diverse topic, and all these webinars can be had from Facebook Live of Ramco Cements page, or you can go to the YouTube. Also, we are uploading. So this is what we have been doing. So because we want our the professionals to be much ahead in terms of various developments that is taking place, and that is the reason for organizing various types of webinars. Over to you, Engineer LK Jain, so that you can start off with your presentation, sir. We don't want to take much of your time. Please start off with your talk, sir. LK Jain, sir.
Jain sir,
Yes, sir. We have 667 participants who have logged in on the Cisco WebEx platform, and more are logging in through Facebook Live. So this would be a very good presentation. Jain sir, you are able to...
Yeah. Am I audible?
yes sir.
Okay.
You can load your PPT, sir.
Can you see my PPT?
Not yet, sir.
Hello?
Yes, now it's getting loaded.
Yeah. Good morning, friends. I hope you
Yeah,
all
yes,
have tried.
yeah, it's on slideshow. Please carry on.
Thank you. Friends, for design of water retaining structures, we are using the code as 3370. This code is been revised recently. Last year we worked on that, and it's just now under printing, and maybe next month it will be available. I'm trying to introduce this code to you. Mainly, I'll talk about the salient points in this code which have changed. This is a photograph of a tank collapsed in 1993 earthquake in Maharashtra at Kildari, we call it. There are very few failures of water tank we have noticed, and most others there are problems with water tank which are workmanship problems. On water retaining structures, or in this document we call it liquid retaining structure. In this particular document, we are retaining aqueous liquid. We are referring to that. Now, water tightness has been now dealt little more clearly, and the difference between this type of structures and other is about water tightness. Concrete with very low permeability we want. Permeability to monolithic concrete is very small. The seepage takes place through cracks or the joints. That's the major part. We can understand what we call seepage, what we call leakage, and what we can call a wet patch. A monolithic concrete can only have a wet patch if its permeability is very low. But the problem of leakage and seepages do come from the cracks or the joints which we have in the concrete. Another concept which is introduced this first time in this code is H by T ratio. It is nothing but pressure gradient which is driving water through a concrete section. So it is pressure of water on the concrete section at that point divided by the thickness of concrete. So assuming that the gradient is constant throughout the thickness, the average gradient will be h by t. We'll be talking of h by t ratio very much in the code now. So leakages or leakage does depend upon h by t. Now we already know IS 3370 is in two parts. Part 1 is general features, salient features. We'll be looking in. We have added a clause on terminologies. Many of the terminologies are added. I've given you an example of construction joint. It is a partial discontinuity in the concrete during construction and intentional joint in concrete, which is finally treated to ensure monolithic behavior under serviceability and also under ultimate stage. Next, there is a clause on materials. It's a very brief clause because we read for materials from our mother code, which is IS 456. Or in the guidelines which I have given you, you may see little more details on the materials wherever needed. I want to make it very clear, blended cements or addition of SCMs, that is supplementary cementation material, are preferred for water retaining structure. Today we get flash blended cement. We can directly use it, or we can add fly ash or GGBS during mixing to this concrete. So we can use blended cement. Classes are there on aggregate, admixtures, jointing material, and reinforcement. Very specifically on reinforcement, I'll tell you that use of fusion bonded epoxy coated bar is included, because many people look into whether it is permitted in IS code or not. So it is now permitted to use different type of bars, and not only these bars but other types also. But this bar doesn't straight away solve all our problems. We should be taking high care to avoid scratches in this coated bar. In this coated bar, that is epoxy bonded coatings, if there is a scratch, or we call it holidays or a pinhole position, the rate of corrosion can be 6-7 times higher than it wouldn't have been a coated bar. So if those scratches we cannot avoid, then there is no use of going for use of coated bar in the water tanks also. This present picture is from a work being done for elevated tank in Mumbai. Stainless steel bar is also permitted. We have another option of galvanized bars. Bonded epoxy coated bar are already spoken. Here, the option, India is manufacturing and exporting stainless steel reinforcement bar, but we are not using it. We can use it. But whenever you are using these different types of bar in combination with normal other steel, please note that we have to, there should not be a direct contact between these different type of bars, and we have to insulate these bars from each other. We will look into what is exposure condition. We have been getting guidance on these exposure conditions from IS 456, and as per that, there are 5 exposure conditions: mild, medium, severe, very severe and extreme. As per that table of 5 exposure conditions, we place our water tanks in severe. So any uh, any member of a water retaining structure, or we call it container or tank, we should design at least as exposed to severe conditions. Of course, we in some cases numbers exposed to very severe or extreme conditions. So for example, in a treatment plant, we have alum solution tank. Now, alum is highly corrosive to concrete, and concrete cannot stand to it. So what we do is we apply a acid-proof line, a simple China, our tiles, uh, what we use in our bathroom, so glazed tiles, that we can put it. But the jointing material or pointing material is very important. We put acid resistant material there. So this is how we have to deal. So we can have higher exposure conditions. We look into this is beyond also something else. The modern approach is to recognize the deterioration mechanism which is responsible for loss of durability. And we have to design for durability. Knowing that mechanism, we have to design. That is, select the grade of concrete, select the parameters, that is mostly permeability of the concrete in relation to mechanism, which is permeability is not only for water, but the transportability of many of other things. It can be water, solution, gases, ions, and so on. Now, the materials which take part in loss of durability in all those mechanisms, we have to understand that and can design. Moreover, many of the code of standards are now talking of these approach, and it's possible, but a lot of data we have to collect for the type of concrete we are going to use it and parameters of the concrete before we take into before we design it. So for example, the penetration of chloride into the concrete. Most of the time we are using chlorinated water, and what the chlorides are available throughout the life of this structure, and these chlorides penetrate into. So what is the rate at which it can penetrate, and when these chlorides reach to the reinforcement surface, and this concentration of ion at reinforcement, when it reaches a particular level, the resistance of the concrete, the corrosion of the steel is now broken down or is reduced, and corrosion can start. Once corrosion starts, it is a matter of few years, something like 5, 6, and if the things are very favorable, very good concrete, it will be 10 years, that steel will be corroded extensively. So corrosion start is more or less, you can take it as the end of our life. So these approaches will come shortly. We have in BIS, we are revising IS 456, and as soon as revised IS 456, that will be talking of these different mechanisms of durability loss, and we'll have to design as per that. Now this table 1 is as it is, it was in earlier code also, except that we have increased the binder cut. Earlier, for reinforced concrete, about 320 kg was permitted. Now we have increased it to 350 kg. Neon cement content. Not only cement, but total binder. The cement plus SCMs, supplementary cementitious material. Basically, I recommend that we should not have consumption more than 400 kg. OPC consumption more than 400 OPC or PPG. Because if cement consumption or cement content is higher, the shrinkage will be higher. So if we exceed this, we have to for shrinkage parameters and we have to design accordingly. The simplified guidelines given in the code regarding shrinkage design or mineral steel is valid for content between 350 to about 400 kg. Beyond that, those are not applicable, and we'll have to shrinkage means more reinforcement and cracks and so on. One has to design for. Now here you can see that we permit the majority of water tanks in M30 grade, but to continue with the practices we had long back, we allow small tanks to be done still in M25 concrete. And if it is PCC, one can do it in M20 concrete. PCC means though we put reinforcement, but without reinforcement also the concrete is safe. But for temperature shrinkage, we'll have to provide reinforcement. Whenever in this code we have a PCC, it means that some steel we are providing, but we are not depending on the stresses in for our load bearing due to water load. We are not dependent on steel stresses. Now coming back to durability, corrosion of steel is most important in our water retaining structures. In buildings and others, you will find that carbonation of concrete is one of the important parameters. Here, our concrete is normally wet, more or less saturated. So, the carbonation of concrete doesn't take. In carbonation takes place. The alkalinity of concrete, which is provided by CaO, calcium hydroxide, which is the end product of the hydration of cement and formation of cement gel, which gives us strength. So the CaO, which remains there and forms weak crystals, that gives us alkalinity in the concrete. If it is weak, we can use it by incorporating fly ash. So much of the calcium hydroxide is consumed if we are using the blended cement. So additionally we get more of binding material, not only given by cement, but this liberated calcium hydroxide with the fly ash particles gives us additional gel. But in spite of the fly ash or alkalinity of concrete doesn't go down very much, doesn't go down below 11 pH. It remains. If this pH goes down, the rate of corrosion increases. As it goes down, if it goes down to 10, the rate of corrosion is rising. The alkalinity of concrete is also lost due to water seeping out. Constantly water is seeping. This calcium oxide is soluble in water, it comes out, and you'll find the white patches on the surface of the concrete. That indicates that the calcium hydroxide is being brought out. And if anything is brought out from the concrete, we are increasing the porosity of the concrete. And in future, the permeability of the concrete will increase. That's not a good thing. Initially, porosity permeability is very low. We can get a good life of the structure, which can get to 50 years. But in this 50 years, now, today we are talking of life as 50 years because we are not definite, but the international trade needs to talk of 80 to 100 years. For bridges and most important structures, the public utility structures, 120 years. And so, in future, we may think of revising from 50 years to about 100 years. The other aspect which is very important for durability is clear cover on the reinforcement bar, because to avoid corrosion of the steel bars, what we need is good quality cover. Concrete quality in the cover zone should be very good, and the amount of clear cover is specified does make a difference. If clear cover is smaller, the carbonation or chlorination of that cover will be faster, and then durability reduces. We should have very good control on the amount of clear cover we are getting. Variation. When we say our clear cover should be 45, is always plus minus something. That plus minus something should be very, very small. Nationally, what we feel and what our codes also assume plus minus 3 mm. But is done if somebody can do it in plus minus 10 mm. 5 mm is excellent. Now, sometimes we see that this plus minus is 20, 25, 30 mm also. And there the durability is affected. There are many site conditions to be considered, which was already in the earlier code. Type of clauses are continuing from 1967 code. The clause about earth pressure, when we design groundwater tanks, we have earth pressure from outside. Now, all our earlier code used to say that we totally discount earth pressure for designing wall to water pressure from inside. Assume that no earth pressure is from outside. Here, I want to clarify that don't assume that there is no earth outside. Only pressure is very small, negligible. Now we allow that and ensure that that earth will always be there, some small pressure, which is a small fraction of the active earth pressure, that we can permit along with the outward pressure. And design of flotation, what we call normally as uplift, is again pertains to ground tanks or underground tanks, our sumps or pump houses and so on. Here, the factor of safety is little increased and the clauses are little more detailed. That to design against uplift, you can use the concrete, load of the additional PCC which may put, load of earth load we may put on the roof of a tank, and so on. Sometimes even anchor piles or simple rock anchorage. Depending upon what type of mechanism we are using, the stabilizing force, we have to apply some factor to it, some reduction factor to it. So these are the new clauses which is added. Stability of structure is to be checked. This is the basic concept. As for physics, as well as you'll find our loading standard, this is specified, and many times people are not checking it, just assuming that our structure is safe. But when structures on sloping ground, the stability against sliding is important to be checked. Stability against overturning is important when tanks are subjected to wind and seismic. Causes and control of cracking. This is very important because cracking is related to the water tightness also that leakage. But otherwise also durability and for aesthetics also cracking is important. Where aesthetics are important, finer cracks you want to control, that's another thing. But normally aesthetics means also a user should not feel that there are cracks and something wrong. There are structural cracks, there nothing goes wrong, and if the leakages are prevented, the cracks remain there. Actually, as you know, most population has, the people have common cold. Common cold is a common phenomenon. There's hardly anybody who will say, I never had a common cold. Or, I don't have. Common cold is with everybody. So all concrete is cracked. Cracks are there in all concrete. Micro cracks develop during young age when the concrete is gaining strength because temperature shrinkage gradients are there. The temperature changes, heat of hydration and so on. And those changes bring about micro cracks in the concrete right before it is 3 days to 7 days old. And 28 days or the concrete which is matured and we are using, cracks are there. But if these cracks remain as bare cracks, no problem. These are not structural cracks and structurally concrete is good. But even if there is a fine crack, we permit. How we permit? If there is a fine crack, if the wall is in pure tension and the crack is through the hoop tension, wall when in hoop tension, if concrete is cracked, water must leak. But traditionally, we are constructing water tanks from such a long time. I know in 50s also people used to construct water tanks in India. I started my own practice designing water tanks from 1970. And those tanks are standing, serving today. Now these cracked concrete also serve because there is a mechanism called autogenous healing of concrete. Within the small, very fine cracks, the material of concrete, the cementitious material deposits and heals through crack. It doesn't fill the whole crack, but the porosity which is there or the space which is there, it is broken. At some position where it is very narrow, some material is deposited. Autogenous healing of concrete is very important fact to be noted by engineers doing water retaining structure. If initially the cracks which are formed are very fine, that is less than 0.1 mm width on an average, these can be healed within say 7 to 8 days. And if things are not favorable, an unfavorable situation may be 14 days. The cracks which are 0.2 mm wide can be healed in about 1 to 2 months period. It's possible. And we don't have to do anything. We allow the concrete to heal itself. It's something like that. In a human body, and we meet at an accident, and we see that the bone was broken, and the body heals itself, and the bone joint. What doctors do is to see that while the bone is joining, it is in proper position. But joining of that bone is the natural process which our body does. Similarly, healing of the concrete crack is done by the concrete itself. We don't do anything, but we have to permit that healing process. There are certain conditions. If through the crack water is already flowing, healing process slows down. Leakage is much higher. Leakage is something like, see that not only drift, but continuous steel is coming, maybe very fine steel is coming. The autogenous healing is not possible. So it should be drop by drop. If it is drop by drop, the healing is slow. If only a wet patch is coming, healing is fast. If temperature variations are there and the crack is live means the width is increasing and decreasing. The healing will be slow, and so on. Now we have temperature gradient in concrete. Heat of hydration, we find concrete may be subjected to a maximum temperature at about 24 hours, means 1 day, for about 3 days. If you have good control over temperature of concrete, which should be there, normally internationally it is said that while pouring the concrete, its temperature should be between 25 to 30 degrees. In India, 25 is a very harsh limit. We may not be able to. In the city I live in concrete, I live that is in Nagpur, the day's temperature goes to about more than 45. In summer, all day, the temperatures are more than 41, 42, 45 also. Peak maybe 48 degrees. It is almost impossible to pour concrete in when I specify that the temperature should be within 30 degrees. So 30 is one of the limits. If concrete we pour at 40-45 degrees, you find that within 24 hours a peak temperature will come, because the chemical reaction is proportional to the temperature of concrete, and in a small period a lot of chemical reaction takes place and the temperature gradient is very high. Temperature generated is very high. So what happens inside the core of concrete, temperature is high. Outside at the outer face, the concrete will have temperature adjusting itself to the ambient temperature. It will be lower than inside, and we set in a temperature gradient. At later life, this itself will contribute to temperature gradient and cracking. Similarly, shrinkage of concrete takes place, shrinkage gradient also takes place. Now, what we do is we provide temperature shrinkage reinforcement. In simplicity, we don't calculate all that reinforcement, but we provide some minimum reinforcement, which is the code's responsibility to see that in most cases that works as temperature shrinkage reinforcement. Control of cracking is important. So peak we have to reduce, that is reducing the temperature of concrete, and on young concrete, that as soon as we have poured the concrete, the external heat should not be given to it. And concrete should be free of restraint. If we have a slab, we are pouring the slab is restrained at bottom, the friction from the base that we have. We can reduce that. We reduce also the restraint by providing joints. If they are very big ground tanks, we provide to reduce restraint, we provide joints. So those we'll see later on all these methods. We have to reduce water concrete shrinkage. Additives are available. Actually, we add something shrinkage, the expansive additives, so that initially some expansion takes place to compensate the shrinkage later. We can have concrete with low coefficient of thermal expansion. Thermal expansion is basically controlled by the type of aggregate. These are options which are possible, and if these options cannot take, then we have to provide more reinforcement. We can use concrete which has high straining capacity, like fiber reinforced concrete, ferro cement. This gives much better control over cracking. But still, come up to where you can design a fiber reinforced concrete. In the Europe, codes are available where you can design fiber reinforced concrete for controlling crack reforms. Small clause of plain concrete in our tank under the crack control things only. Normally we avoid designing plain concrete, but very small members, maybe out the we can do it in plain concrete sometimes, but we have to be We have to have very low stresses in that concrete, direct tension or flex. The values which I am giving here are lower than what are given in the code, because the members of the committee couldn't stick to the values. There was a difference in agreement. So the old values are retained, whereas, in my opinion, the plain concrete value should be as small as given here. If you are designing plain concrete tanks, that means you have to check the stress in direct flexure or tension and then provide nominal reinforcement. So here, by this way, you can provide a concrete which can be an M20, 25, and the stress can be very low. So a concrete where your stresses are very low, you can designate as plain concrete, and we need not provide minimum reinforcement as per as 3370. Minimum reinforcement as per as two physics may be good enough, but condition is it should be a very small step. Length of members should be small. Now for stability analysis, the combination of loops are specified. Similarly for sliding, the effect of these are little improved, means added more. So if sliding checks are required. If they are normal sliding, earlier the factor was 1.25 of that order, now it is 1.4. But if earth pressure is contributing something, then the stability of solution, then your factor of safety has to be much higher. We have joints in the water retaining. When we talk of joints, we talk of the ground tanks, the underground or ground tanks. Underground tanks also normally we avoid the joints. Joints are only in ground tanks, ground supported tanks. In the large ground supported tanks, we do provide joints. We have different type of movement joints where different movements can be allowed. All different type of movement allowed is one is expansion joint. Then contract expansion joints we provide at something like 30 to 40 or 50 meter spacing. We don't provide expansion joint at 20, 30, less than 30 meter spacing. We can. I have constructed structures where expansion joints are provided, or no other type of joint is provided. Structure is 50 meters long, 45 to 50 meter is the length. Earlier, I used to mention that expansion joints can be provided at 45 meters. Upon today, a designer is not constrained by what spacing we should provide joint. At whatever we choose to provide, you have to design the reinforcement of it. Depending upon spacing of joint, I can design a structure with 30 meter spacing of expansion joint. I can design a structure with 50 meter spacing of joint. My reinforcement will be different. We have to design. Now, in between expansion joints are contraction joints. There can be full contraction joints. There can be partial contraction joints. So these many things were given already in earlier code. Also, you can look into and maybe have literature. The document which I have given you, also much more details about these are already given. Induced contraction joint means the concrete is laid monolithic and we cut out a partial depth of the slab. We saw the slab and to reduce a joint and so on. Gap joints are there, then sliding joints are there. These are given in the code. And most important for us is the construction joint. For elevated tanks or for small tanks, when we don't provide any of these movement joints, not even the contraction joints, we do provide the construction joint, which we otherwise people call it fold joints. This is there in all type of torques, reinforced concrete work. In buildings also we provide joints. Now joints are for to break structures into sections. You cannot construct a structure continuously. This is our limitation. And if it is a very important structure, engineers do concrete in one go. Example is the foundations of the our turbines in our turbogen foundations we call it. Now those are, for all its life, it is subjected to heavy vibration, and cold joint does reduces the numbers, and it's very important. And hence they test it, and in construction they have to a single core, a continuous core without cold joint, they have to construct. Now if one can construct it, it's very good. If somebody can construct a whole water tank without a construction joint, it's very good. But for the size of we produce, it's normally considered to be not possible, or it is very, very costly, and hence we do provide construction joint, and we have to deal with construction joint. The notes I have given to you, the guide, one, lot of more details about construction joints are given. In the code which is coming now, the 2020 version, a whole page is devoted to that construction joint. Now movement joints, expansion joint means no continuity, and a gap is provided such that the concrete on two sides can expand and the joint can contract, or the concrete can contract and the joint can expand. It has to function throughout its design range. Total design range is the movement which will take at the joint with the temperature or shrinkage, etc. Temperature and not or. The joint has to function, and function means the preventing leakage or not allowing leakage to pass. All these joints, the problem is the jointing material which we use doesn't have a life as long as concrete. We don't have a material which has a life of 50 years, 50, 60, 80 years. And hence we have to do maintenance. So these joints should be such that maintenance should be possible to replace those materials and so on. Full contract, again, no gap, no continuity. The steel is not continuous, steel is also stopped at joint, and then the joint has to be the difference between expansion and contraction is no gap. There is no gap at the joint, so joint can open out. There is no we are closing it, so joint can open out, and we have to prevent. We have to seal the joint so that leakage is prevented. When partial contraction joint, the concrete is though not continuous, means there will be a crack coming, separation of crack, and reinforcement is coming. Anything? Now, these type of joints, when reinforcement is continuous, is the interface and we have to design. Though these were already in earlier codes, but how to design, what to design, these things were not given. Now we are given them. Sorry, I got. Now, the spacing of movement joint. Now, this is something which is already which was there in 2009 version. I think many of you must have seen it, that we had already as 3070 2009, and in that these options are given. Now, when we provide joints, we have three options, and which option we are designing, it is our option. It's not the structure option. the designer's option. One option is design continuous RCC without any movement joint. If you decide 50-meter long, between that 50-meter long structure or between 50 meters of length of extending joint, in between what will be there, there will be continuous concrete. You have to design accordingly. I say the reinforcement requirement will be higher. Second option is the third will go first. The third option is the joints we provide at closer spacing. Say maybe about 0.5 meters center center. It was there in 1967 code. They used to say that you can provide joints at 7.5 meters center center. The alternate can be a full contracting joint, and at every 30 meter you can have the expansion. So when the joints are at such a closer spacing, you require much less reinforcement and reinforcement, but you provide more of joints, so your headache of leak proof and maintaining throughout the life is more. Thus today most engineers prefer, and authorities also prefer, that there should not be any joint. That is option one. Option two is in between. You can have a spacing. You can design that your joints are at 15 meter, 20 meter, 30 meter. Accordingly, you can design reinforcement. These options can be there. Very long structures, you have to provide expansion joint, and we are still not giving you the guidance in the code to design a very long structure like 40, 45 meter, 50 meter long without joint. Because if you see the international literature also, say for example, ACI gives recommendation where very high reinforcement will be required. So the opinion differs, and hence definite opinion is not becoming before. Have continuous reinforcement, whatever you can calculate minimum. Now there are two possibilities. When we talk minimum reinforcement, this code can be interpreted in three different ways. The minimum reinforcement is specified. 0.24% is the minimum reinforcement. One way. So this is one of the options. Second is option given. To calculate your minimum reinforcement, it is called rho critical. Rho critical can be calculated, which will be very near to what we have given option, 0.24 percentage, but that will also depend upon your grade of steel and grade of concrete and so on. If the concrete has high shear, high shrinkage, the critical steel will be high and so on. So in option one, I can give you a thumb rule. It's not written in the report. It's not in the report. I give you, your steel has to be more than 1.4 times. Can be as good as you go for 45 to 50 meters. Your steel will be more than double the rho critical. But most of the time, I can say that more than 1.4 times. You cannot have option that you don't have joints or you are providing only critical steel. You have to be at least 40% higher than critical steel, and this can go to double or more than double also. That depends upon your structure and the grade of the concrete and the shrinkage character. We have to limit crack width, and limiting crack width we require steel. Critical steel we can provide a smaller percentage. You have to increase the steel to check the crack width. So you provide bars which are spacing. You choose the diameter of bar lower as may be possible, but it should not result in congestion. If you provide very many bars, I provide, say 8 mm bars at 60 mm center to center. This will be a so small a mesh that concreting will be difficult. Option 2 is already there. Now, we will not go in much in detail, but this is all as per 2009 code, which was already there. And there, the steel will be more or less what we call rho critical. rotocritical, that much of steel we have to provide. Now, if there is, if you take option 3, if you are very close to the spacing of joint, the, the other interpretation is when you have very small structure, your bolt of 7 to 8 meter size only, that is very small structure. Your minimum steel can be 2/3 of the specified. Whatever minimum, you can go less than that. So the spacing of joint is very small, or your tank itself is very small, you can save on this steel. Normally, you will find that rapid check, you need not do it. Most of the time, say it. Code doesn't say it. From experience, I say that when you provide very few events, due to temperature shrinkage, the check is not check for this is not required. Over. So, understand that your minimum reinforcement, which is called, or we call it temperature shrinkage reinforcement, depends upon the spacing of joint. And the present philosophy which we have in this code is as per the British method. I have to specifically say that because PL code, if you refer to ACI code, it is different. So philosophy is little different, and the steel requirement is higher in the other codes also. So what this code gives is as per the British method, and it's something bare minimum. If you have any other doubt or any other phenomena coming in, you have to increase. Now, this I want to say and give importance. All movement joints are to be designed. That you joints are to be designed. What is the movement? How much amount of movement as an expansion joint will come? It's material or sealing material which you put in. Can it take that movement? Now there is a method. This method is not given in the code, but methods are known already. Designing of these joints. So people, those who do bridges or those who do pavements, there it's known. It is not in the IRB code also. Many of the test books provide this design detail. And here, expand my notes to give you those details. But this joint, but all these joints and sealants wherever we provide at the joint. The contraction joint also we have to provide a sealant, and we have to design. We have to know what material we are providing, how much is that is gone, and what strain it will fail, and that will be safe. If my sealant, I design that it has to serve for 10 years. Till 10 years, it should take that strain safely, and so on. Last time in this code, we have talked of what designer has to do at construction job. It was all the time in all the test books, the codes of other countries as well as in our code, it was written that designers should specify the positions of construction joint. We know construction joint is a weakness in structure. Using weakness in structure somewhere. So the designer should know where he is introducing the weakness, and if he is introducing the weakness, check things at that section, because most of the sections we are designing for a slab or wall are subject to some stresses, and because of that load and stresses coming, the crack is produced, the possibility of a crack width also. So we can check the crack width, but plus the crack width will be high. So today now, with this, there's a new code coming in. Your designer has to specify on drawing where the construction joint will come, and at that joint he has to check the crack width. steel as well as crack width, that it is within the limit. And at that position only construction joint is to be given. During construction, the contractor or the agency or the people who are at site cannot change the position of the joint. Opt for that we can do away with construction joint. If the construction joint is specified and somebody decides that I will not have this construction joint, or you do without that construction joint, further pour up to the next construction joint as specified by design. We can do away with a construction joint, but we cannot introduce a construction joint at another place than the specified place unless the designer gives a permission, because we have to take it. Jointing material, there is a clause introduced, though small, because still jointing materials are not covered by many of our IS standards. Some of the jointing materials are covered by standards of IS standards, etc., because they are pavements. Some of the joints are in lining, the canal lining, and so on, and building material. And building joints are on buildings also. Some of the materials are covered for building. Say, for example, bituminous materials are also there, but in a water supply project, the potable water supply, we cannot use those materials. So we have an additional requirement. So all are not available, but some small guidelines given. Now the construction of these training structures is the whole area. So some few clauses are given there, and somewhere else I gave a whole seminar, a webinar on construction of water training structures, and those who are interested, maybe about 50 or 60 page guidelines is also available on that. So one can ask for. Just for water tightness of this, whenever we construct water tank, it is to be tested for water tightness. When we test it, we have to permit the heating of concrete. So we say that water we have to fill in the tank, allow 7 days, and after we take reading. How much is the leakage? How much drop of water from the tank? That is the drop of the surface water. Check. Last code, that is the last revision, 2009 revision, also we have introduced that roof of a water tank also you have to check for water tightness. That was already there. The roof has to be checked for water tightness. What you can do is, it is not a flat roof. By a hose of pipe, you have to allow water to flow for an hour or so and see that there are no leakages below. This is the end of what is our part 1 of the IS 3070, and beyond this, you can go, if you allow, you can go today, or we can look into tomorrow, and this sometime is available, we can have question and answer.
Thank you so much, sir. I think we can continue tomorrow for the next session by Jain Sab. In fact, it was a very good presentation where he highlighted about the water tightness as well as the importance of joint that has to be given. I think many of us, we would not be paying so much attention to it, but the code has given so many guidelines. And I would also suggest that we must go through the codal provisions which Jain Sab has already circulated, some reading materials which is already circulated. We can go through that, as well as any kind of questions that is there, we can ask tomorrow also. But there are few questions. Can we take it now, sir? Jain Sab? Jain Sab, can we take few questions today?
Yes, please.
Yeah, one question that has come about is what is your view on corner haunch-like structure in order to avoid crack and buckling at bottom?
Haunches were provided at two places. One of the places, if we talk from the tank container proper, the wall and slab joint, whether it is ground tank or elevated tank, at bottom, the tank wall meeting the slab, that bottom joint is very important. But tomorrow in my lecture, I will give details of it, that joint. Now there, the H by T ratio, which I talked of today, is normally highest because the wall bottom joint, the depth of water is maximum. Now the second thing is, in between, most of the tanks are circular. In between, when we are horizontal joint, at that joint, the stresses are very normal. And mostly compression due to dead load of the wall. Basic force is the hoop tension, which tension in the horizontal direction. On horizontal joint, the weight of wall comes, so it is a compression. It is not critical. But whereas at bottom joint, there is bending. The bottom joint is subjected to bending plus shear. The shear of the wall is transferred to the slab is through that joint. So that joint is subject to tension due to bending plus tension due to shear and so on. Plus, if it is an elevated tank, somewhere the wall and slab joint, the load on the slab, the shear force from the slab becomes the tension on the wall. So at that joint, it's not in compression, but it is in tension. The joint is in direct tension plus bending plus shear. Plus, I've already said maximum H by T ratio, maximum hydraulic gradient for water to flow. So we have to be cautious. To reduce hydraulic gradient, what we can do is we can provide extra thickening. So this extra thickening is called haunch. We provide a haunch there. Many people provide, and that is needed. There is a alternate method also. Now, our demand is very high to reduce the crack and the leakage. Other alternate is to provide a higher amount of reinforcement to introduce, not to allow very high crack width, so that our leakages will be small. If we provide more of reinforcement, it also takes care of the shear. The shear capacity, as per physics, all those design, they know it that shear capacity depends upon how much is our longitudinal reinforcement. If we provide more of reinforcement, section has more of shear capacity. So if we increase the reinforcement, not only we reduce the crack width, it is better in linkage shear also. So you see one factor which are introduced because it is that joint is a construction joint. The crack width will be higher than normal. If it wouldn't have been a construction joint, some crack width is there. If a joint, same reinforcement, same thickness, the joint is there, the crack width will be higher. So we have to provide something more, either more of concrete or more of reinforcement. So this is providing a haunch. Earlier people were providing haunch in elevated tanks. I think Dr. Engle is talking of elevated tank. When it comes to that, I think he can explain. But nowadays we don't prefer, because providing haunch means in shuttering some extra thing is to be done. Whenever something extra workmanship is required, and more of a chance that quality goes down. What we prefer nowadays is, instead of providing haunches, we take care properly in detailing, and where the skills are a little more critical, we provide little more steel. So that things are out of the critical zone, but they are better.
Sir, another question is regarding the expansion joint spacing. Spacing of expansion joints, what can be the maximum possible practically?
While lecturing, I told you in one of my structure, I have done it up to 55 meters without expansion. I have done it. This is all possible. The thumb rule is, if you go beyond 30 meters, you have to be very cautious. And what I've said that if you provide expansion joint at greater length, you have to provide more steel. You have to design for steel. You have to design for the steel. You have to design for. It is possible nowadays in structural engineering that you provide a continuous structure for 80 meter length. Maybe it is building, maybe it is bridge or anything else. But you have to design for temperature swing. Normally, what we do is in normal buildings, even in buildings, if it is more than 20 meters, we have to take care. People, those who are doing buildings 10 to 20 meters, the same calculations, they do it for 30 meter building. Somewhere the problem will come. If they do the same thing for 40 meter building, somewhere white cracks will come unaccepted. So you should know the limit. You can design maybe 50 meters. Then you have to do a lot of calculation. And simplified analysis, as we give what is valid for, in this code we give simplified version of temperature shrinkage embedded into the minimum reinforcement. Now that is valid for something like 2022. Beyond that, it doesn't work. Beyond that, if you are going, if I want to construct a ground tank, which is 25 or 30 meter size, I have to consider how I am designing, how I am constructing, what is the method, what will be my earth pressure, and what will happen for those temperatures. If my answer is not favorable, I have to design for those and provide extra reinforcement, more than minimum. In elevated tank, that is not a problem. In elevated tank, restraints are not there. So going up to 30 meters is no problem. Beyond 30 meters, also, though the reinforcement increases, but not much, not practically much. Tomorrow I will show you some tables in which we will indicate how reinforcement can vary as you increase this level. Tomorrow.
Another question is, after checking tank for leakage, if any leakage is observed, is there any standard SOP included in this revision?
See, the crack width and leakages, there are two requirements. This code provides a crack width requirement. But due to some design error, if crack width is more, it has to be replaced. So crack width we check as per the code, but there is always a probability that there is 5% probability, 10% probability of that order, that a crack width of higher crack width may occur than what we have checked. We have checked the crack width less than 0.2 mm, but really it becomes more. So the design is not erroneous, but we have a responsibility to grout that crack, because we don't permit cracks more than 0.2 mm, because if it has come over the period of time, the leakage will come. If today it is not appearing, tomorrow it will appear. So there is a responsibility of constructor to reduce that crack width by properly grouting it. So it has to be grouted. Now about leakage, we are doing a structure without lining. Now tomorrow I will show you, we have graded the structure into 3 different grades of water tightness. The class of water tightness number 3, class 3 water tightness is absolutely no leakage or no wetness you allow. That is only possible by providing a lining. If my tank is provided internally with lining, a waterproof lining, then only absolute zero leakage is possible. In some cases, if I am doing a pre-stressed concrete tank, where no crack width will be there, and with a coating inside, we can provide no leakage. So if you are not providing pre-stressed concrete, if you are not providing inside a lining, then we have to permit very small leakage, and I'll not call it leakage, but wet patches coming out on the wall, or leakage such that you see the shine of the water, or maybe dripping, one drip now and after 2 seconds another drip. Not like drip, drip, drip. It's not like that. So leakage is not that order. That we permit because concrete is permeable. No amount of, even if you design MAT concrete, maybe permeability will go down, but it's not zero. No concrete is totally impermeable. The permeability can be very low practically if we provide a concrete less than 0.4 water cement ratio. That's a concrete more than M40 grade concrete. Now today in practice we are doing in many countries they are switched over to M40 grade concrete for water treatment. Now we can't give a shock treatment to our people who are doing all work. And for last so many years we were doing for M20 grade, then we converted to M25 grade, today now M30 grade. So we have come up to M30 grade. If you are doing with M30 grade, you have to bear with some very minute leakage. But somewhere if you find for some reason the leakage is more, it remains unacceptable. One has to grout it and stop that leak. So I've given you an idea that what is very small leakage. A water shine may come up to outside, but if water is just leaking drip by drip successively, in a second you get some 2-3 drips, so on, or like a flow, you have to grout it and stop. Those type of leakages we have to grout and stop. That cannot be permitted. Though design is all right, nothing wrong with design. It can be a construction problem or anything else.
Okay.
Yes.
Sir, regarding this construction joint for IMSI tank, IMSI tank, how do we provide construction joint for IMSI tank?
MC, I can follow that term.
Okay, IMTZE tank.
IMT.
IMTZE, IMSI tank. How do we provide construction joint for such a kind of tank? That is a question by Mr. Mukhopadhyay. I think it's in West Bengal. They follow that.
IMP means important tank. Does it mean importance? Now, if a construction joint is there in the concrete,
Okay.
we have to treat that construction joint. The basic requirement is at construction joint, good quality concrete is there. Now all those things are given in note because time permits. I think the question is there. I feel it is important that I tell you now.
Okay. If the raft is 1.5 meter thick, can it be casted in 3 layers?
Pardon?
If the raft is 1.5 meter thick, can it be casted in 3 layers?
Has to be.
Depending on
No, I'll deal with construction joint and then I'll come to the draft.
Okay.
When suppose you are doing a vertical wall, you fill the concrete in the form and then you vibrate it. If you vibrate well, you'll find top few millimeter, some slurry will come. That is the indication. But that top few millimeter, if only slurry comes and the aggregate, much of the aggregate sinks down, it indicates that that few millimeter concrete is having high water treatment ratio. Leading water also comes to the top, and only paste, much of the paste is there and aggregate is not there. So that concrete is weak in strength as well as porosity and permeability is very high. We have to remove that concrete. So requirement is remove all bad concrete. If there is a loose aggregate, if there is a slab we are doing and we leave a horizontal construction joint in the slab, so at the end where we leave the slab concreting, there will be some loose aggregate. So after a few hours or maybe on next day, if you want to start the concrete, all those loose material, which is not a good compacted concrete, is to be removed. maybe you have to break it away and remove it. Now, what is left behind is a good concrete. Any broken concrete section you have seen, most engineers have seen when a concrete tube is tested. After testing the tube or when a tube fails in the lab and failure surface, you see the aggregate, you can see, and what you can call it is good solid concrete. Or a good solid concrete, when you know it by hammer, you can check that solid concrete is and roughen it. Roughen means you remove all the mortar portion from it, so you can feel it like a good concrete. It is solid concrete, but it doesn't have bubbles, air bubbles in it. So at joint, we have to remove material till we come up to a good solid concrete, which is rough. Now, roughness is normally of the order of 3 to 5 mm. Roughness is good enough. Roughness, internationally, they are taking the roughness. There are tools, the roughness, and how there is a definition of roughness of concrete. So they check the roughness. It is half diameter of the concrete. You can imagine a section. If I take a section of that concrete, the line will go up and down of that surface, and you can plot an average line and what is the average amplitude you can check. Now that can be 3 to 4 mm. Now question is whether it is 2 mm, 3 mm or 5 mm is not very important. If it is 3 mm, 4 mm or 5 mm is good enough. More than 5 mm you cannot do it if you have 20 mm aggregate concrete. More than 5 mm roughness is impossible. It is only possible if you have 40 mm concrete. 40 mm concrete, then you can go roughness up to 6, 7 or 8 mm roughness. But for our structures, the 3 to 5 mm roughness is good enough. We do that roughness and then lay the new concrete. Now, while laying the concrete, if the old concrete, depending upon the time between new and old concrete, if the time gap is very large, you have to have a bonding tool. Time gap is not large, it is hour or so, hour, 2 hour. You don't need any bonding tool and you can do that joint. Now, after laying new concrete, one has to check that the old and new concrete joint has become solid, has become totally filled in, is compacted. There are no voids in that. Hence, one has to take care. And if there are any, which we find later on, we have to grout. So, this is how construction joints are to be made. And all construction joints, I recommend, are to be grouted. Now, grouting is to be done in cyclic process. 1 cycle, 2 cycles, 3 cycles. If the joints are good, 1 cycle of grouting is good enough. If there are leakages already seen and or honeycomb already seen at joint, by naked eye, there will be more cycles of grouting required. The successive cycles will increase the pressure of grout. First grouting, the pressure is very nominal. Second grouting, the pressure is higher. Third grouting, pressure has to increase. Then only you can make it leak through joint. So, all our water tanks, joints are important. I said all important. That word, particular word which was used, I take it important. So, and we have to make all joints leak through. We have to treat the joint. Treatment of joint is necessary. Now, coming to the raft, if we are pouring a raft, maybe any other concrete, not only water tanks, the raft normally is done in layers of 300 mm. We don't do a concrete because if we do a concrete in 400, 500 mm, one go, sometimes in beams we do it, one lift, we do it lifts. So 400, 500 mm lift we can do beams also. We find that depending upon our workability of the concrete, normal workability is there, the plasticity of concrete remains for a long time and bleeding takes place. Concrete does settle. And it's not good. And it's not possible to check up whether all concrete is properly compacted. If we do concrete, we do the concreting in layers. Layers normally are not more than 300 mm to 400 mm. Normally 300 mm. If it is a stiff concrete, somebody has done in pavements. If it is a workable concrete, almost 375 mm, something more than that, we can do 400 mm concrete. People have done up to 450 also, but nobody recommends more than that. So you have to do concreting in layers, but see that before you put a next layer concrete, the old concrete has not set. So your whole program of concretization, that is laying concrete, you have to prepare such that cold joint is not produced. So you should know your initial setting time of your concrete. I have scored on that, but you can easily understand if you feel you don't test it, you know the basic initial setting time of cement. So take it more or less same. Initial setting time of cement, which is normally between 60 to 90 minutes, sometimes more also. That's the time available within which you should pour next concrete. I have another document available which I made for IRC, 2-layer concrete. The whole pavement we can do it in 2 layers. You put 1 layer and over that another layer, so that that was for different reasons. The bulk of the thickness in lower layer we can have the aggregates which are local. We can do M50 grade concrete with local aggregate, but for the durability and for wearing resistance, abrasion resistance, we have to have good aggregate in the top layer concrete. So the 2 layers have to be plastic over plastic, green over green, we can say. Before the lower layer sets in, we have to put the top layer to integrate it. So whenever we do concrete, we have to integrate it. Now, as an example of road I have given you, so I have tried to explain you in few maybe a minute or two, but that code is a 30-page code. Do a integrated concrete. So maybe you are not doing road, maybe you are doing some foundation work for building or for a water tank or anything else. If you want to understand how to do green concrete over green, separate document is not to my knowledge, but this code is there, which is green concrete multiple layers.
Thank you so much, sir. I think since you are coming again tomorrow, session 2 would be there. I think many of the questions that would be asked would also be again touched upon. So with those words, Krishna Sahakari sir, would you like to add something? Ashwath sir?
Yeah, I just wanted to thank. It was very interesting lecture, and even now 500 plus participants are still waiting to listen to L.K. Jain sir, our past president of the association. I'm very happy that he has so much of energy to disseminate knowledge even now. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir. So we meet tomorrow at 11 o'clock. Again, session 2 by Lalit Kumar Jain Saab. It would be there tomorrow at 11 o'clock. So let us meet tomorrow at 11 o'clock. Till then, take care. All the best. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.